All right, so this is for version 1.008 of our design tools. Just a kind of a quick walkthrough video to show you the 4 commands that have been added to it. As always, if you do EEFDN help, then I'm going to have a window and it'll be these last 4 commands going on here. So the ones we'll be looking at that have been added this cycle are EESLOPE, EESTEP, EEGRIDLINE, and EESECTION. But as always, the FDN help will pop this window up if you don't remember a command or what it, kind of a brief description of what it wants to do. So our first command is EESLOPE. So we'll type that in. And you'll see that what it's going to ask you for is to click 2 points. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. And so first point here, if I want the slope to go up that way, it will draw an arrow of a set length, text height that way. And I can do this in any direction. And the arrow will always point toward the second point. The arrowhead will always be on top. So if I come over and go, say, to the other direction, and then the slope will always be above the line. The other feature that's kind of cool is that this is a block. So if I delete it, it's one entity. In fact, you can see it if you go into the insert menu and go over to our current drawing. You can see that it's made a left arrow and a right arrow, and these are horizontal. And then what the command does is that the first time you run the command, it creates the block if it doesn't already have it in the drawing, and then the next time what it will do is it basically inserts it at the angle based off of those 2 points that you click. So pretty straightforward on that one. That's our EESLOPE. Let's see, we'll close that. So EE, do it again. And you can see that it auto adjusts for any direction. So I can go down this way. I can go straight up and down. That one kind of gets you a little bit due to the verticality. But if I do it again and I come here and I go just a hair off to the right, it'll do it correctly. So you got to kind of watch that one. That one might get you. That's the only one that I know of. I'll try to see if I can figure out how to fix that bug in a future issue, but you can see I can do all of them, and it's just that one downward arrow one kind of gets you. In fact, like that one, if you go exactly up, that's the problem that we have. But otherwise, I think it works pretty well. All right, our next one that we'll look at is the EESTEP command. This is for concrete steps. It creates an icon. Again, it's done as a block. So I'll type in EESTEP. Okay, the first point that you're going to click is the point where you want to place the marker. So at this point, I'm just going to choose the intersection, and then you click on another point to kind of orient the direction of the step. Let me do the first one, and you'll kind of see what it's doing. And then it's going to ask you, is the left side higher or the right side higher relative to that line? So if I say no, then our left side icon is not higher, and that's exactly what it's done. So it's written the block. So left side's here, right side's here, and then it used the line to set up on that vertical edge. So you're clicking the insert point, and then you're clicking a line that shows you which way that line is oriented, and the rest of the block is done similarly, and it works at any orientation. So if I do that again, EESTEP, say I want to put the marker here, and then I can come up to some orientation here. This time I want the left to be higher. You can see that that's exactly what it's done. So relative to that line, the left side is, if you kind of tilt your head and look at the icon, you can see that that's the case, and it works at any orientation. So left is lower. I can come down and do this one, and we can say left is higher, and you can see that it will orient it relative to that. Now, again, I don't know how practical it is for you to want to orient this icon that way. I figure most of the time, those two will be the ones that will be more practical, but you have the ability to set it however you want, right? Last one, just to make sure that the vertical is working, I'm going to go this way. And you can see that it will do that. So that is our EESTEP icon. I've left an asterisk, so there's no typing on this. It's just because I think that refers to a table that you guys put on the drawings, but it works. So that's our second one. Our third one is the EESECTION. So say you have the outline of a foundation already laid out, or really anything at this point. I can type EESECTION. Oops, if I get in the right window, let's try that again. EESECTION. Okay, and so this one, again, you got to be kind of mindful of where you're clicking. I went ahead and set it so that your insert point is always along one of the the boundary lines, and then it will offset relative to that. So let's say I want to put a section that's here. First point is the click point where the section line will cross. Okay, and then it wants to know the end section line for the section line. So I'm going to go to the tail, right? And then relative to that, which way is the arrow going? So I could go up, I could go down. So let's just do an up one first, and it will give you kind of a visual marker that that's the way things are going to go. It also tells you whether it's identified itself as a left section or a right. That does make a difference in the calculations, but for you guys, it shouldn't. So I can go and say, is this correct? I say, well, that's kind of what I intended, so yes. Okay, and then I can give it a label. Let's call it section, section number 1. You can give it any label that you want, and then you can see that it goes in and it draws all of this. And again, the arrow part is a block, and then the circle is not. So you'd have to grab all those items extra, but it works in any orientation. So if I go do EE section again, I can go, let's go up. Oops, let's try this again. Grab my point, and then I come down. I know it's kind of counterintuitive. If you guys want me to change this because it doesn't seem natural, I'm fine with that. Let's go to the left this time. So now it's a right arrow. Is this correct? Yes. Let's call that is section 1-2. And you can see that it'll fit in there. Now, again, it's expecting it to be smaller. We're starting to get into different, it's a little crowded. But again, you can scale that down if you want to. I don't know how often we're going to be doing multiple sections like that. But if we need to adjust that, that's an easy fix. But you can see I can orient any direction that I want it to go. You can do, even on an angle, say I want to look. And so relative to that start point, so that would be a right. And then I can say that that's a section B. And you can see that it will draw a section wherever you want it to go. And it works in any, like all the others, it works in any of the directions. So let's say I want to do this, and we're going to do a downward one this way. You can see that that's the way that it draws it. And the text is always horizontal, so you should be good to roll on the section marker. Our last one is EEGRIDLINE. Okay, and what this does, this allows you to quickly and easily put grid lines in. So again, kind of similar to the section marker, I'm going to choose this point is where I want the grid line to cross. So say you've got a column and you can choose the center of the column. Okay, and then I'm going to come through and I can draw this as long as I want. And so that will be kind of where it thinks it's putting the grid line. Is this correct? That looks right. You say yes. Okay, and then it's going to ask you for a label. So let's call this as A. And what this one does then is it says, okay, well, relative to this, let's go draw multiple that are the same. So I can go in and say, well, I need number B, say here, and it does it. And I can go over here and say C, and it does it. And I go over here and say D, it does it. And then it'll do this until you hit escape to end. And you can see that the section markers are all a phantom line style, okay, and then they're all the exact same length, which is kind of convenient. Now, the one thing that we have to look at is, there might be some movement required. So say I did an EE section here, and I come down and come to this one. Okay. Oops, I'm doing the section. Let's try this again. Let's do EEGRIDLINE. Okay, it goes from here, and we'll come down to there, all the way across the drawing. And then let's say that this is number 1. You can see that it always sets it. Oops. Get my label in there. There we go. Got our label in. Okay. And then it will always set it as a set amount away from that line. So that distance is the same everywhere. So if you need me to come up with, we might be able to come up with a way where it auto sets these all, because ideally these grid lines would all be lining up the same amount, but it's not a big deal to just hit these and hit move and then drag these up, and you can fix it pretty easily to get them all so that they're lined up. And now you've got convenient places to be able to snap between grid lines to establish your lines as you want to. Okay, if you see any other features that you want, like maybe you want automatic dimensions on those, let me know. Maybe we can come up with something or a way to do that. Okay, the problem is that obviously when I move those lines up, these lines are a little bit shorter, so you would have to stretch those back down, but it's not too bad. It works in both directions. So I can do grid line, let's do one here, come across, and say that, oh, well, that's number 1. oops, or say, yes, that looks right. It's number 1. And then I'll come down here and say, oh, this one is number 2. And then I come down here and say, this one is number 3. And then this one is number 4. And so forth. And you can just keep going again. Escape ends the command, but you see that it did all of them and it updated. I don't have a way to update the labeling as of yet, but for now, it's still pretty quick to go in and pop these puppies in as you need to. So one tip I would give you is just, choose it to go long. So if you do, like if we're doing one of the short sections again, like say I'm coming here, make it extra long down to here, and then that's correct. Let's make this an F, right? All right, and then when you drag it up to here, your line is still good. So I think that will still work. And this can work for grade beams, it can work for columns, whatever the case may be. But I think it's a pretty handy little tool to be able to kind of lay stuff out. And it's fairly quick on the copying. You just go boom, boom, boom. If you've got all your pieces already laid in and now you're just dimensioning and detailing, it should work okay. So anyway, that's our 4th command for today.